Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in TV land. Welcome to Webeam TV, and this is Taboo Talk with Ray and Steve. I'm Ray Amanat, based out of Port Richey, Florida at the Webeam Studios, and I'd like to bring my co-host all the way from Texas in an undisclosed safe house, Mr. Steve Reed. How you doing, Steve?
I'm doing fantastic. Ray, how are you?
I am doing excellent, as always. Looking forward to this topic. Today's show will be on the military life from boot camp all the way to retirement. To help bring perspective to this topic, we welcome our special guest from Denver, Colorado, retired Sergeant Master Sergeant Ray Tuggle, who's the Director of Business Development and Military Liaison with Defenders Gateway. Hello, Mr. Tuggle, or how do we address you?
Since there's another, sir, yes, sir, no. Since there's another Ray, probably just,
Sergeant
Tug, Senior Master, yep.
All right, cool.
Or Senior, sounds good.
So before we get started, as always, all of our episodes have a bunch of sponsors. Our first sponsor, of course, is Heroes in Action, which is based out of here in Port Richey, Florida. We do anti-bullying, violence prevention workshops. Our headquarters, we actually do hands-on training for women's self-defense, child safety programs, dealing with active shooters, you name it, anything that has to do with violence. We have a series of books that we have, The Adventures of Mushy the Martian, and our mascot that when we do programs or seminars, it's to promote child safety in a safe way. You can go to their website at heroesinaction.us. And then Steve, if you want to talk about our other sponsors that we've got.
Sure, happy to. Ray, as you know, I've been coaching people now for nearly 30 years. I started back in 1993, and I tell people all the time that I am a multi-purpose pain reliever. I help people with emotional pain, with relationship pain. If they've got executive challenges, I help in those areas. But most recently, I've been helping people with physical pain. Now, what do I mean by physical pain? Maybe it's back pain, neck pain. Maybe you had an injury and there's some residual pain that's involved with that. Well, one of the things that I am doing is I'm introducing to people this cute little patch. It's a wafer-thin patch that is a wearable, non-transdermal. In other words, it's not a drug, it's not a lotion, it's not a drink, it's not an injection. You just simply peel the back off of it, stick it on your body as prescribed, and almost instantly you will feel relief. A friend of mine had started trying these patches not too long ago, and she said, Steve, the biggest thing that I have found besides the pain relief is her sleep habits. She says, I'm able to sleep through the night. So if you're having problems with pain or sleep, I'd love to reach out, or I'd love for you to reach out and see if we can help you. The company is LifeWave. They've been around for about 20 years, and they are absolutely a life changer. So Steve Reed, I'm a life and marriage coach, a Ziegler Choose to Win coach, and a multi-purpose pain reliever. Back to you, Ray. Well, now we've got another sponsor. How can I do this? I am not trying to disregard our friend Natalie. If it was not for Natalie, I would not be enjoying some great supplement products. This is a picture of our friend Natalie Thurman. Natalie lives up in the Detroit area, and over 40 years ago, she was diagnosed with having some problems with arthritis. And she started taking the Shaklee vitamin products way back then. And as a result, today, she is still able to play the piano, do her gardening, her sewing. She is living a very fruitful life today. Natalie has been taking these products for over 40 years, and I tell her all the time, you don't do nothing for 41 years if it don't work. So if you'd like some information on the Shaklee product line, reach out to Natalie today. I guarantee she's going to answer your questions. She'll make you feel better in the process.
Awesome.
Thank you, Steve. And thank you to our sponsors for making the show possible for our viewers. So, Sergeant Master Tuggle, we'll work on this. We'll work on this.
That's okay. Senior Master Sergeant. Yeah, there you go.
Senior Master Sergeant.
There you go.
Being in the military is not always sunshine and rainbows. You and I had a brief discussion that prior to you, you're a Gold Star child.
Yes.
Can you tell our viewers what that is and how that experience was for you, and you still made the choice to serve our country? And then just give a background of why you joined the military and what branch you served in.
Yeah, so definitely. So I'll talk about the Gold Star in a second. So for me, my story starts off as a military child. My dad was, in the military. He was an Air Force combat controller, and we were stationed mostly overseas. And however, we moved to Florida to Patrick Air Force Base, where I, for the most part, went to school, to Satellite Beach High School and middle school there. And I bounced around from job to job with no direction, mostly in the hospitality business. Ended up in Vegas, living with my parents who were stationed at Nellis Air Force Base. And this is kind of just walking through how I ended up actually in the military, and then I'll talk about that. I got married and had my first son, Trevor. And unfortunately, my son fell and actually needed some serious medical care for his eye. And at the time, we had no insurance. And I remember my wife asking me at the time, she asked me why don't I join the military as an option? And to be honest with you, at that point in time, I hated the military. And I was really struggling with that decision because my son needed medical attention and I needed to make a decision. I didn't have insurance. So I decided to consult a pastor of mine who happened to be a military chaplain. And this was a pivotal moment in my career because when I went there, he asked me, he said, well, you seem like you have a chip on your shoulder. And I said, well, I think I deserve that. And he said, why? And so I told him, and he said, can I ask you a question? And he asked me a profound question that shook me and pretty much changed the course of my life. He asked me, how is it possible that you could hate the very same thing your dad loved and died for? And that was really, really impacting to me because I had built up all this anger all this time because when I was 12 years old, my dad was on a training mission to rescue hostages in Iraq or in Iran. And that night we sent my dad off, and the next morning that day we sent my dad off, and then the next night I heard 2 cars roll up in my driveway and 8 doors open and 8 doors close. And I'll never forget it. I heard a knock on the door, and I'm the oldest of 3, my brother and my sister, that we were all sleeping. And my mom opened the door, and I'll never forget that scream. And they basically came to let us know that, my dad had been killed. And I literally, from that moment on, just grew up so fast, and it changed my course. I literally watched my mom change from a loving, outgoing person to someone who just inwardly retreated, and I ended up being the oldest, taking care of my mom, my brother, my sister, and just went through some really tough times, seeing that struggle. And so I carried that burden with me, and it was really tough. So, however, when that chaplain asked me, how is it possible that you could hate the very same thing your dad loved and died for? I had to realize, like for my faith, I too had to realize that, for me, Christ had died for me, and no matter how I treat him or whatever, it was pivotal. So I ended up actually really surrendering to the fact of going in the military. I ended up doing that. And I made that decision at that point.
I mean, that is so powerful that going through what for the viewers that don't know, Gold Star family is a family that loses somebody in military life that serves our country. And for you as a child to go from that and still make the decision to join the military and serve our country, that's, to me, I'm speechless. Thank you for that message. And I know the turmoil that you went through was difficult, but I'm glad you dealt with it and made the decisions that we're going to talk about next.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Steve?
All right, so
Yeah.
I'm going to use the abbreviated process for name calling, and senior sergeant major or senior major sergeant or sergeant
Senior
major. Can I just call you, did you say Tugs?
You can call me Tugs. That'll work.
Incoming Tugs. Okay. So if I can shorten things up just a little bit, it's easier for me. I don't have a military background. In fact, I graduated from high school in 74, right at the tail end of Vietnam. And the news media convinced me that I didn't want to have anything to do with it because, well, I'm going to let you use your own imagination. But I have a huge respect and regard for our military commanders, warriors, chiefs, infantry, whatever today. I am very passionate about the military today in a lot of different ways. In my coaching practice, I have helped a lot of vets deal with what you dealt with and the anger and the bitterness that you held onto for a long time. So I commend your friend, your chaplain friend, and in helping you through those things. So again, I commend you for stepping forward and going forward in the process of joining the military as well. But I got a question for you related, but in a little bit different direction. I would imagine that boot camp, when you went through, is a little bit different than boot camp would be today. Can you tell us the differences, what it was like for you and maybe what it is today?
Yeah, a couple things. For me, when I went in, I was older. So I was 21 years old at the time. And so I had actually had a family. So when I went there, it kind of reminded me of, I wasn't scared. So like at nighttime when I was there, of course, when you're the oldest, you become automatically in charge. They put me as, the element leader for my dorm and stuff at the time. And so I'm in there, with a troop of young airmen or young military members. And at nighttime, I can remember hearing weeping, like actually them crying. And I kept thinking like, I didn't realize how young and scared and nervous that these guys were. And at the time, there was don't ask, don't tell. So I had everything. I mean, honestly, I'm surprised I made it through. We had, everything from a devil worshiper who actually burnt a pentagram in his bed to a country boy who wanted to beat up this one guy because he was a racist. I mean, it was like, we had everything. And then I had one time, because it was don't ask, don't tell, I'm sitting there at a reading time, and I had this guy go, "Hey, I'm gay." I'm like, no, you're not. Don't say that. Anyway, point is he ended up actually admitting he was going to medical and got discharged. But I dealt with it all, and I can say that, it was a really eye-opener for me because, we didn't have cell phones. We weren't talked to very nicely. Actually our guys could put, our TIs could put their hands on us. They could, just make us do all kinds of stuff running there. And there wasn't a language barrier. They pretty much, really shaped us up and shaped us. And I can say that, we learned to not take things personal. And I can see why in 6 weeks to 8 weeks to 12 weeks that the military boot camps can literally take someone from any walk of life and transform them into, a fighting warrior and stuff. So we've seen, all kinds of stuff. Even our boot camp, as far as the physical elements, were a lot more stringent than today. TIs are not allowed to curse. They're not allowed to put hands on you. They're not allowed to get and actually speak a certain way to you. They're allowed to have cell phones now or have phones, even though I didn't have cell phones at the time. You can have cell phones. So there's a lot more connectivity and connection, whereas, we didn't have that. When we were gone, we were gone. Nobody could contact us. We were getting letters from our families. And that was really the gist of the setup. And so, I'm watching this and I had to admit, I miss my family and my son. And that was really the first element of being able to understand the attach detach piece of what the military life was going to be like.
So, Tugs, of all the different memories that you've got from your boot camp experience, as well as from just serving for the amount of time that you did, What are your most memorable experiences that you've had throughout your military career?
Man, I've had so many, total of 44 different countries altogether. However, I can say, when they say that you must go to grow, I now understand why. I would say one of my highlights would be my presidential duty in 1996 to 2000 when I was working with Air Force One. I met Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton, and that was a pivotal, amazing moment because everything is so pristine, everything is so top notch. I got to work with an organization that, was just, gosh, so put together, and I learned so much and grew up so fast. I think that was one of my major ones. On my first duty station to Alaska, I worked Intel, and can get into a lot of specifics there as far as locations. However, I would go in, it was dark. I'd come out, it was dark. However, the mission was so incredible, and I just learned teamwork and camaraderie. I mean, at the time, I was going through some marital issues, and the support that I received was unprecedented. So that was pretty incredible. I think the other thing I would remember is, creating an enlisted training program when I was in that, working with the Iraqi Army. That was in 2008, was really an incredible time to be able to have such an influence because, if I was to ask you guys or anyone, why do we have the greatest military in the world? And many people come up with a lot of answers. However, there's really one answer that's, I think, is very true. It's because we have the most educated military in the world, because we don't have that disparaging top to bottom. We have a middle floor where the military members enlisted to officer are practically educationally the same through experience and everything else. So we have a lot more respect and we work a lot more congruently together. So that was huge to be able to influence that to the Iraqi Army, because if you notice, every other third world country, the reason why they do not have a military like we do, or even Iraq, or even China or anyone else, is because they have hierarchical. They don't have the trust that we have. They don't have the relationships. And then I would say, so that was pivotal. I think one of the couple other things would be first sergeant duties. And what that means is you're, as a top enlisted member, I was an enlisted side, top enlisted member is you get in charge of a unit and you're responsible for the health and wellness of the unit as far as the members. So there could be everything from helping numerous members through, loss of a loved one. I remember several times being able to do that. And then, or suicide, and, being able to either help someone through that or actually, as an after effect. So those took, those were things that prepared me for a lot of the stuff that I do now. And I would say that one of the other pivotal points is I was on a mishap team. That means when we have aircraft that go down, we take the black boxes and we literally transcribe every moment from the start of takeoff to the actual crash itself. And so transcribing someone's last moments of their life and then deliberating and watching colonels and generals deliberate over whether the family's going to get, benefits or not, because it was a mishap or it was actually, an error, was pretty significant. So I've had quite a few of that. And I would say, lastly, I would say mentoring and coaching young people to be the best version of themselves, which really leads into what I currently do now too. So that was pretty pivotal. Those are some key moments and things that I would say that were memorable and significant moments as far as my military career.
Yeah, unfortunately, we have some bills to pay, and I want to share some other information about our sponsor, LifeWave. And one of the key features of the X39 stem cell patch is it's going to help you. I have to be careful how I say this. It's kind of like a fountain of youth. By the age 60, our stem cells stop doing what they were supposed to do, and by applying this little patch to your body, it actually stimulates your stem cells to go back to work and do the things that the stem cells are supposed to do. You're going to have rapid pain relief. You're going to have rapid wound healing. You're going to have better sleep. You'll actually reduce the number of wrinkles that you have. There are so many benefits that you have to this simple little patch. And somebody asked me, well, stem cell therapy is very expensive. Well, without going into detail, it's less than the price of a cup of coffee a day for you to start feeling better on a day-to-day basis so that you can perform as well as you'd like to. So, Tugs, I got another question for you, and that is, I'm assuming that you mentioned being in Iraq. You had other deployments around the world as well as around the U.S. But
Yeah.
give us some ideas on what it was like to have those different deployments. What are some takeaways that you got from those different times in your life?
Yeah. Well, always being away from family is, I think, the toughest, because I did have children. I had 3 kids. And so being away from them, I can remember specifically with my first deployment in 2001 when 9/11 went off for the global war on terrorism. It was extremely brutal, hard time for me because I was going through a custody battle. And I have to say that, my commander at the time offered to allow me to not take that deployment. And I really prayed about that. And I asked my family and I asked my children, if that's something that I could do with them, not having a problem with that. I got their blessing, and I did take that deployment, even though I was going through that, and had a opportunity to really, let's just say, lose my custody. However, at the time, my sister, who lived in Hawaii, volunteered to come out and actually fulfill my obligation during my custody arrangement times, and my ex supported that. So it was a really incredible moment, because at that time, obviously it was in, a significant moment. So it was pretty impacting. So that was incredible for that to happen. I worked with an operational commander in theater, seeing combat for the first time. When we talk about shock and awe, doing things that we've never done before, in theater for global reach, to be able to do what we do and actually put that into play, and to come out of that, victorious, was amazing. I would say some of the most significant things for me were I worked in the headquarters and seeing all the Jane Doe letters, for soldiers. And people don't talk about that, So when you're deployed a lot of the soldiers and airmen and Marines and, everybody, they get a letter from their spouse or their girlfriend and say that, hey, look, I've either cheated or I'm done or whatever. We can't just pick up and go back home. So they have to continue to work through that. So that was tough, to get and actually work through that and know that these guys had either nothing to go back to, or that they had to go and actually struggle with that. So it's no wonder that a lot of them become deployment junkies that want to just stay there, because that's where they're loved, that's where they're cared for, and that's where they find purpose. And so I found that to be very true. I've had a total of 8 deployments, but 6 to Iraq, Afghanistan, Kuwait, Syria, Jordan. And I would say one of the other pivotal moments about my deployments were, during President Trump's time in 2017, where Syria working through to eradicate terrorism with ISIS, and to watch all of that just be pretty much annihilated, to where we stamped out terrorism as a whole. And that was a great part. I was working with some special people at the time, special operators, and to be able to get and not only see them in action and be able to take care of that stuff was really pivotal. And I would say one of the other things is literally seeing the loss of life, watching someone bleed out or something happen like that. It's not to be taken lightly. So a lot of the stuff that we see sometimes, even though there's a great majority of us that really don't actually face combat, I haven't myself faced a lot of combat. However, when you do, it's just unforgettable. Things that just you really take into memory, you don't often forget. And I can say one last thing is that the moon is much bigger overseas than it is here in the U.S. It's closer.
So, Tugs, after 26 years of serving, with a total of 8 duty stations, 7 overseas tours, and visiting over 44 different countries, how difficult was it for you to leave the military?
I thought it would be very simple, because I've been an entrepreneur in a socialist system, let's just say, for a long time. And I always found ways to make it enjoyable and everything. So I think when I was getting out, I wasn't like a lot of us. There's a majority of military members that want to go and serve right back into the military through, civil service or as contractors. And I think there's a small portion of us that, want to do something different. So I didn't want to go back in the military. I think that was something that I really didn't want to do. And I knew that government wasn't something that I could pursue my passions with. However, I didn't know what I wanted. So when I was getting out, I literally went through all the transition stuff. And to be honest with you, when I started to put together my resume, I got exhausted, because there's just so many avenues and so many things that I had accomplished that I just felt overwhelmed. So I just wanted to see, what I could do. However, so one day, as I was getting ready to transition out, I literally had a buddy that I was staying with, come to me and say, "Hey, look, I want you to come with me." And I'm like, "Well, I'm not hungry," because he wanted me to go get chicken wings. And I was like, "No, I'm good." He said, "Well, okay, here's the deal. I need a veteran, so I need you to come with me." And I'm like, "Seriously, you want to use me?" And he's like, "Yeah, just to get chicken wings, you'll enjoy it." So I went ahead and actually, I've been praying about this. So I always call this story the God and Chicken Wings, because I went out to go get the chicken wings with him. And while I was there, this is another pivotal moment for me, because I had literally watched this presentation. The people that were there was actually Defenders Gateway, with Carol Watanabe, the founder and CEO of Defenders Gateway, giving a presentation of her company and her vision. And while we were having chicken wings, literally God touched my heart with this vision of what it was that they're doing to help our veterans. And I knew that I was in the same boat, that I didn't know what I wanted. I didn't know where I was at. And I wanted to be able to find access to resources and services and things like that could help me through that. Because one thing that we take for granted when we're getting out, a lot of us, is that we don't understand our soft skills and how we can apply the tools and skills and tech and things that we have learned in the military on the outside. It's almost like an us against them perspective. And so it was very tough for me, and I did 26 years, and I had even been, in civil or employed before the military. So I couldn't imagine a lot of the people that actually members that come in that had never first experience out of school was going in the military, and that's all they knew. That's a tough identity. And so that's why I do now. I coach from an identity perspective, because that's a huge transition. So yeah, that was tough.
Yeah, Tugs, I have learned over the years myself that experience is a great teacher and a great mentor for us, but somebody else's experience sometimes is a better teacher, so you don't have to experience the pain yourself. So it sounds like you are in a role today where you're helping to mentor people as they're transitioning out of the military into civilian life. So I've got kind of a two-part question. Number one is, how good is the government at helping people in that transitional process? And the second thing really is, do you see a difference between the different branches in service? Are they being treated the same in all the different branches, whether it's the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine, Coast Guard, et cetera?
Yeah.
But also the full-time officers, career people, et cetera, and the part-time people and the National Guard, are they all being treated the same, or are there areas where we need to step up and the government needs to step up in different ways?
Yeah. Okay. So I thought about this a lot too, because, when we look at this, because I was Air Force, and we are often considered share force, because we're literally not in the fight, right? I mean, we're doing stuff from afar. We're in the airplane, or we're on the networking through satellites and things like that. So the reason why, though, okay, I can see this, and like I would work mostly with the Army, and being able to see that Army perspective is that they couldn't allow their soldiers to be that comfortable, because what happens is that they're not going to have the best dorms, they're not going to have the best accommodations, because if you spoil people, if you allow people to have something too good, what happens is that then that's the expectation management has allowed them to go and actually expect that when they're out in the field or when things really go south. So I can see that the Marine Corps and for instance, because they're the grunts in the ground, kicking in doors to include the Army, there's a perspective that the military has perfected to make sure that these guys have a mentality that's much different. That's just way different than the Navy, the Coast Guard, the Air Force. And I can say that, I'm not going to say that we can justify that. However, when you're talking about literally creating a fighting machine, you don't want that machine to be like what we're doing now with our boot camps and basically allowing them timeouts and allowing them certain things, because here's the deal. You may not want war. You may not like war, but war likes you and it's coming after you. And so one way or another, we need to have people who are willing to put their lives on the line and do the dirty work and do things that no one else will do. And that mentality takes an extraordinary mentality. And so there's going to be accommodations that you're going to be willing to sacrifice. And that's the part that, not justified, but that's the part that we sign up for, And so as far as treatment goes, though, there's a lot more money, a lot more resources. to accommodate the dorms and certain things in the military, the Air Force, the Navy, because we're dealing mostly from afar on ships, so there's a whole different perspective financially and everything else that goes into that. So I can tell you that, when you talk about Air Force or even the Navy, it's considered the actual, more the, smart thinker, intelligent type, because what we're doing is we're strategically making different maneuvers, right? From a longer perspective, from a more macro perspective, so that we can then execute with the Army, with the Marines. So it's like, basically we're all playing our part. I always say this is like, it's much like a face. So is the nose more important than the ears? No. The fact is we all have a purpose. However, the whole entire body, works together to make that happen.
Oh, Tugs, one other question, actually kind of a two-part question here again. You said something about timeouts. I'm sorry, but the way I understood timeouts back when I was coming out of high school and into college, and those days post-Vietnam era, the timeout that I was hearing about was a 5-mile run or a 10-mile run.
Yeah.
There's your timeout. So you're saying that there are timeouts that they have to go sit in the corner for a little while? I hope that's not the case, but if it is,
yeah. So you'll appreciate this. Okay, this is the reason why, and I say it like this. Okay, so you and I all of us here grew up with strawberry chocolate and vanilla. Okay, so it's easy to make a decision, right? Because pretty clear. Unfortunately, in today's society and era, you have 64 flavors. So now you have so much information, so much to choose from that literally emotionally, we don't know how to do that. So we're all in an EQ, emotional intelligence arena. And so what's happening is we misunderstand that. So to include a reaction, right? We want to be able to respond, not react. And guess what? Now the military is actually bleeding over from society, a reaction versus response. And so we're in a reactionary thing to where we think that, hey, all of a sudden an airman, Army, soldier, whatever, gets emotional, then we need to go and actually allow them a timeout. We need to allow them to be able to process. We need them to be allowed to have a siesta or be able to be set aside. And the truth of the matter is, if we've been doing this and perfecting this for so many years, the fact is that they do need outlets to be able to process that, but not when you're actually testing them. Because when we're testing the model, that 6-week, 8-week, and 12-week period of being able to put them under pressure, a pressure cooker, so that they could actually handle whatever they're going to face is so critical. And I'm telling you, until we're being tested, tried, tested, and proven, this is not a great formula. And this really scares the tar out of me after being a veteran for 26 years, watching how we used to do it to now how we do it.
So, Tugs, I would assume that PTSD from your earlier years in the military are very different from PTSD today. That there are people that are claiming PTSD when it really, in reality, they just got their feelings hurt, as opposed to somebody that's in a combat situation and they see their buddy blown to pieces. I would imagine those are two different types of scenarios. But how does the military really help people today with true PTSD? And is it more prevalent in the Army and Marines than it would be in the Air Force and Navy and those branches of service?
Yeah, so I'll say it this way. So a lot of it, with PTSD, I mean, let's just say we've all known that for post-traumatic stress disorder, where literally you've been involved in combat or have seen something that's been very, very traumatic. And so I would say old school, people like myself, I remember this one time where we were actually stationed at a FOB and we had a rocket attack and it basically went overhead and hit like maybe 100 yards away from us. And I remember someone that was there, and it was an Air Force guy that I was working with. And all he wanted to find out was how could he get a combat action badge from being almost hit, right? So this is the mentality that started to take over, is that, whereas for us, I mean, unless you literally have been hit or at least taken under attack, you wouldn't even consider that. So what's happening, the way that they're doing it now is that they're really looking at almost like any event, where you claim that you could actually go and actually say that you've had post-traumatic stress disorder. And so I can say that, for instance, the Army and the Marine Corps, by far, for sure, based on the fact that when you're talking about literally losing buddies next to you, or seeing someone be shot in front of you, or seeing the loss of life, or being hit by an IED, or actually, being literally taken on fire. I mean, those are things that are beyond legitimate, to include loss of limb and loss of life. So those are things that we look at as legitimate, where now, honestly, it's getting watered down. And a lot of this comes down to, against the medical profession, which in a sense, I mean, and we've seen this with COVID, this just becomes, unfortunately, a lot of times money or whatever. So we're feeding our members now through the VA. A lot of them are getting put on medications and for the most part being drugged, or given, we're always a test subject for the next available drug or things. So that's why we're doing a lot of holistic perspective. I do NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, and I can literally take someone in 2 days and have eliminate their PTSD through mental emotional release. Where what I do and through NLP, it's not even considered, from the VA, because it's not a standard practice.
So it gets back to things that can actually help our soldiers is not being looked at. Even Steve's LifeWave patch that he has to offer that can help stimulate stem cells for healing wounds and things like that physically, if they don't look at that as a potential solution to be able to offer, or just like the therapeutics for COVID. Let's just get the shot or the medications, not knowing what's in it, but as opposed to the therapeutics that have been proven over time, that is, to me, it's above and beyond sad to not offer it to veterans that can actually benefit from it.
And Ray, I'd like to say it like this. I mean, truthfully, there comes a time, and seeing the systems and everything else, I know systems are incredible. However, there always comes a time that either you join the system, fight the system, or create a new system. And truthfully, I think sometimes you just need to create a new system. And so part of that is providing opportunity, does it work? I mean, really, the question is, are we really thinking cognitively to see what benefits we can actually offer them? I actually know LifeWave. I've used LifeWave. I would say, hey, that's an incredible product. And it is definitely something that I would say I would endorse, because it is actually making a difference, right? And so here's what happens is that through the military or through the DOD, they wouldn't accept that, because it's more of a preventative. And so this is the part that I'm really, I would say, at odds with, because throughout the military, like, I'll give you a PT fitness perspective. We would actually wait till someone failed a PT test to then send them to go get nutrition information or knowledge, right? So then they'd be on the verge of having to be kicked out, versus actually giving them that preventative nutrition and knowledge before they even took their PT test. So we're on the more of the, again, reactive versus responding and preventative.
That's the analysis that leads to paralysis. That just keeps everyone just like, oh, what do we do next? And they're over.
My kids were like, well, gosh, you're retired now, so like, aren't you going to take it easy? And I'm actually at my best now, and I'm like, feeling alive. So I can say that when I met Carol, I was working with her for a little bit at first, and then I went and actually did some personal development. I wanted to find out who Ray Tuggle was, and I literally took myself through an entire 13-week program that I coach from now with identity stuff, and I started life coaching. I started a life coaching business, and so I still do that. I ended up becoming an actual master practitioner in NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. And that's really kind of how me and Carol kind of came back together, because, she wanted to go and actually provide services and benefits to people that are military veterans and first responders to be able to help them out. So I decided to go and actually team up with Carol again, and we went to a franchising conference. And that's what really sold me, because we went down there and started talking to these guys about opportunity. And when I talked to these franchises, they kind of looked at it and said, hey, what do you provide for military members and first responders? And they said, for the most part, discounts. And I was like, really? That's how you think of us, as a discount? What about opportunity? Because do you understand that if you have a helicopter crew chief, or say, for instance, a network operator or anything like that, that we know systems, like we can literally run your franchise like with our eyes closed, I mean, for the most part. So would you be giving opportunities to them? So they kind of looked at me like with a stare. And then I said, hey, look, do you have any veteran franchisees? And all of a sudden, someone always in the crowd would jump out and say, hey, look, oh, Timmy's killing it. So my question to them is that what if I could give you 40 more of those veterans and actually run those franchises? And so it just started off with the passion. And I really think I sold myself on what was really the messaging of what we can provide as military members exiting the military or first responders. And it just took off. And I really just, again, clinged on to Carol and her vision. And what a wonderful, incredible message she has, even with her little Patriots Embraced of helping military children. And I think that was the other part that I fell in love with this company. So I'm part of Defenders Gateway. I'm actually the director, of business, development and military liaison. Proudly, to be working with Carol because of her mission, not only helping through Little Patriots, helping children of military deployed members. Think of it. I was that. And so then to be able to find, what we're doing to be able to create that lily pad, like I was telling you, of a needle in a haystack, because when we get it out, there's so many great veterans out there giving their lifeline and blood to create nonprofits. However, they're spending their life savings doing it, and they're not working smarter than harder. So there's some others that are really successful. So we're looking to bridge the gap to bring them all together, align them, help them synergize and be able to do that, and then provide business opportunities, transition, all these things. So now we created, Defenders Gateway with an actual military app called Defenders Gateway. It's a free app for military veterans and first responders to be able to download the app that actually uses a GPS navigational system to allow them, if I go to Lubbock, Texas, I can find out what businesses, services, churches, whatever, are in that area or anywhere else I go, and puts them at their fingertips. So we're communicating and connecting with businesses, nonprofits, franchising, services, anything, and patriots that want to go and actually support and help our military veterans and first responders. And for the first time, I feel it's actually a focal point, one-stop shop to be able to go and actually allow you to find things when you need them. And so I'm looking to get next year, we're looking to take the app that we have and put it in the hands of our defenders even before they get in the military, so that they can have a life cycle all the way through. So when they get out, literally they have connection with all of this throughout that entire life cycle as we go through it. We started a Defenders Gateway coffee, just to go and actually create, just an opportunity for, a income stream and have fun with just being able to, create some really robust premium coffee to help our folks. And the other part is we have a Defenders, support foundation that we created so that we can start giving back and helping out. So a lot of this is just, I'm excited. I started a podcast, and just being able to hear the voices of America as far as the different veterans and first responders. So I really appreciate you guys even inviting us on. So thank you for that. And it's been an incredible ride, and I'm obviously alive and excited. I wake up every day, just wanting to go and actually go to work and make a difference.
Tugs, I got to commend you for what you are doing. I had no clue. Ray told me a couple of weeks ago, man, I've got this guy. He's got this great program. We have got to get him on the program. I'm like, yeah, okay, fine, whatever. And
yeah,
Tugs, thank you so much. Ray, I'm going to give you a gold star, buddy. A smiley face in the whole 9 yards. I'm glad you brought this guy on. He's really got some good stuff. And you may or may not know, but the company LifeWave actually started by helping the Navy with some energy enhancer patches. That was long before we had the stem cell patches. So it has a history with the military. So
I think LifeWave could also be on the app. That's something you and Ray need to sit down and talk about.
Yeah,
we will have follow-up conversations, I will assure you.
Yeah.
So and if I can do some things, ways to help put more money in your pockets to help fund your programs, I would love to help you do that as well. So this is definitely a win-win conversation. So
I do have one thing. Awesome. No, I appreciate it. I have one last thing to mention that really not a lot of people think about. So let's just put it this way, like as a military member, I'm not able to have brick and mortar. Let's just say I'm entrepreneurial, which a lot of us are, in leadership. So what we end up doing is getting involved in network marketing or, and stuff like that. And so those are businesses, and those are things that provide great products and opportunities. So all I can say is that we want to support those that are out there, because again, there's a lot of people that want to be, being able to help themselves. And as a young airman, that was one of the things. And I can tell you this, my mom was into Amway when I was growing up, and that was one of her ways that she put food on the table as a single mom when my dad wasn't around. So all I can say is that anything that helps, a veteran or first responder or their family, and provides a great opportunity or product, we want to be a part of, and we want to be able to help those that are obviously listening.
Absolutely.
Tugs, I hate to do this. This is a great conversation. We've got to break for another real quick commercial. Speaking of network marketing, Natalie Thurman with Shackley, she's been involved in the Shackley organization for over 41 years. They've been around for over 65 years. And one of the things that Natalie introduced me to recently was their meology program. And with the meology program, you fill out a little questionnaire online on the Shackley website, and then they design a nutrition or a supplement program specifically for you based on the way you answered those questions. And not only did Natalie help me get on the meology program, but she also helped my wife get on the program. Mm-hmm. And you may realize this, but men and women are different, and we have different supplemental needs. No matter what their needs are, Natalie Thurman, 41 plus years with the Shackley organization, she can help guide you through all of the needs that you have. So reach out to Natalie Thurman today. I promise you will not be disappointed.
Yeah, that's awesome.
One thing that you were talking about in network marketing, for the spouses of veterans that are deployed. There's a lot of times you're moving every 6 months to 2 years to a new location, and you're always having to start over and get another job. But with network marketing, regardless of what product or service that you're promoting, that follows you. You take your business with you, and you just grow it at the new location that you're at. So, for the spouses, whether they're the wives or the husbands that stay at home while their spouses are deployed, it's a supplemental income. It brings extra money in, and that business can travel with them anywhere that they go. So, thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, it's huge because, like I said, I would love to see it become, ironically, we're in Taboo Talks, right? I would love to see this become mainstream because, again, this has provided a lot of, income streams for a lot of people to get them through, whether it's COVID or different times, hard times. And even if it's, some aren't really successful, a large percentage probably aren't very successful. However, it is something that you can actually do and really be blessed and benefited by, because I've done that myself. I've had several multi-level marketing or network marketing businesses, and I always hear people talk about, hey, it's a pyramid scheme and all these other things. The truth of the matter is we have billions of people across the world, doing this, to help their families and create income.
So, Tugs, tell us a little bit more about the app that you have, the Defenders Gateway app, and tell us more also about your podcast. I am intrigued by your podcast as well.
Yeah, I'll start off with the app. The app was a tremendous concept, again, designed and created by Carol Watanabe, founder and CEO of Defenders Gateway. Her vision was to be able to put something in everyone's hands, which of course we know that, maybe you like it or love it or not. The phone itself is the way that we communicate. So apps are very profound. So, however, what we wanted to do is be able to take what's currently good or, seen as not so good and create something good out of it. And that was to be able to create an app that allows anyone from everywhere that supports, first responders and military veterans, their families, to be able to come onto the app and be able to put down, their business, connects us with business, their nonprofits, their franchising, and just any services and things to that, for to be able to access. So if I'm a member, a military member or first responder, while I'm deployed, my family has access to it. They can find services and all those things, or specifically when I get out. So let's just say a lot of times the active duty have a lot of things available to them. But let's just say the Guard and Reserve folks we talked about earlier, they don't. When they come back and they're off duty, they go back to their normal civilian world in their life. And so all the support systems are no longer there, and they're not really there. So to have that app available and have services and know who supports you and who doesn't, and be able to do that anywhere in the country, or in the world, for say, is really important, and it's huge. So we want to be able to make it visible and accessible anywhere you're at. And then whether it's a Dunkin' Donuts, or whether it's actually a health and wellness, whether it's actually finding medical or VA support or whatever, a crisis line, whether it's actually finding, just a nonprofit that you're looking for, or even a franchise opportunity. What if I want to own a business? What if I want to go and actually, we have a jobs board ad where you can actually, submit, businesses can submit, employment needs. And in a time where a small business is suffering, we're helping to drive traffic to their doorstep, help them build revenue, and help their employment needs at the same time, to include providing services to our members at the same time. So we're talking win-win-win. And that's what we want to do, is be that gateway to be able to bridge, the win between everyone, because we know this, the fabric of America means that if we take away home ownership in small business, we will crumble. And so that's why for us, our mission is to drive business, or drive members to small businesses, because again, conglomerates, all the big guys, whether it's the Amazons and everyone else, are taking over, and small business is suffering, whether it's Walmart's or whatever. So we want to be able to find those passionate entrepreneurs and business owners to be able to help them out.
You were going to talk about your podcast.
Oh, yeah. The podcast is pretty fun, because again, there's a lot of, let's just say, testimonials and stories out there that most people haven't heard. And what we want to do is highlight the ones that, really, like, I guess in a way, somewhat of your taboo talk, right? Where we're bringing on, spouses, children, that have grew up that way, and everything else, to include, political figures and stuff like that. We brought on Chaplain Pace, who was in the Army, who talked about and brought me to awareness that 67% of all deployments are done by Guard and Reserve. And I mean, it blew my mind. As an active duty member, we just, we really have this mindset that we're the ones that are putting in all the workload. However, it's all budget and economic, that when we're actually, and through budget crisis, we're actually changing, and we're making the Guard and the Reserve the active duty, per se, to take care of that stuff, altogether. So just bringing on those stories and allowing the people to hear, from people who are doing great things with veterans or first responders. I've got a guy called Will Be Inspired, who literally is buying gym memberships for first responders and military veterans across the nation. So we've got great people out there doing great things, and we want to be able to bring them on and be heard. And that allows us to find out who's doing those things, and then synergize with others and help them kind of benefit one another.
Tuggs, I would venture to say that the three of us are pretty much like-minded, in that we've built our business lives through the whole concept of networking. I'm not saying network marketing. I'm just saying networking. It's who you know. As you're talking about helping some of the vets develop a business opportunity, whatever the case is, I've got a friend that I could connect you with that helps people set up franchises or look for the right franchises. I know a lot of people that are solopreneurs or entrepreneurs. They're looking to grow their businesses, but they're looking to bring other people on as well. And it could be part-time, full-time, whatever the case. So I can see it's not what you know, it's who you know.
Always.
And I want to be able to point people to your podcast. So how do we find your podcast?
Yeah, you can go to thedefendersnetwork.com/podcast, and that'll take you straight to us.
Excellent.
As well as our website. Yep, thedefendersnetwork.com is our main website, and then /podcast will go and actually take you out there to us. So I appreciate that.
Fantastic. Thank you very much.
We've got limited time. Can you talk to us about, this is for women, coffee shops, restaurants that serve coffee, and this is a good way to help raise money with Defenders Gateway to give the charities. Can you talk about the Defenders Gateway coffee real quick?
Yeah, so one of the things that we decided with our Defenders coffee, because first of all, a majority of people drink coffee, which is a great product. And in the military and first responders, we're known for drinking our coffee. So what we do is we give 60% of that goes back to our actual charities through our foundation. So what's going to be nice about that is we're going to be able to identify those particular charities, such as Little Patriots Embraced and other ones that we name that we go through, and be able to decide on how we can actually give back to our first responders and military veterans. So there's one income source for us to be able to allow us to be able to provide and give back to our charities and stuff like that. So we're excited about that and really looking forward to seeing who else we can help out as we go through this process.
That is awesome. So Steve and Tugs, thank you for this discussion and for our viewers to give them a little bit more insight on the life of a soldier from start to finish. As always, this episode is also sponsored by Heroes in Action, which is a nonprofit dedicated to violence prevention education. Dealing with bullying, kids that are in the military, they call them military brats, and I love the Little Patriots Embraced. I prefer that. But we want to give them the knowledge on how to stand up to a bully, and I'd like to share more with you or talk more about with you to help that along. We only have about 55 seconds. If you want to add anything, Ray or Steve?
Yeah, I would like to say that, first of all, I mean, granted, there's a lot that could be said about bullying and or, the suicide stuff that we briefly mentioned. There's just so much going on because there's a lot of interpersonal stuff that goes on with the families that a lot of people aren't talking about. And being from everything from watching being a child in a single home from someone who, lost their father to just deployments, all those things are very important. And those services and those organizations that are supporting that really, make a difference. So definitely something that's a bigger topic.
Suicide hotline image up there for every one of you real quick, and then we're going to have to say goodbye. I just want to thank you again, Steve and Tugs, and we'll see you next time on Taboo Talk with Ray and Steve.
Awesome, gentlemen.